Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins with Mike Howell, the protagonist, who is currently tied in a holding cell. One of the questioning officers enters the room, while an unknown stranger stands outside watching them. Mike has a sequence of flashes, containing vivid recollections from the previous few days. Printed images of evidence, such as a bloody spoon, a frying pan, and a teddy bear are placed on the table. He has been living quietly in West Virginia with his girlfriend, Phoebe. Mike is head over heels in love with her, and they're both stoners. He has arranged a surprise vacation to Hawaii for the two of them, where he hopes to propose. Unfortunately, Mike gets a panic attack every time he tries to leave town, and they miss their flight to Hawaii as a result. He apologizes to Phoebe several times on the way home, and while she is clearly upset, she tells him it's not his fault, and forgives him. He returns to his dead-end job as a clerk, at the local convenience store the next day, and spends his free time refining his unique comic book about Apollo 8A, a monkey astronaut who goes on adventures, because the register business is usually slow. He goes outside for a little smoke break, and it is revealed that the CIA has been spying on him in secret. He was previously a part of a clandestine operation, known as the Ultra Program, but he has no recollection of it. Victoria Lassiter is pictured browsing through sensitive files in her office, at the CIA headquarters. Peter Douglas, her former assistant, enters the room to say goodbye, before leaving for the night. On the other end of the line, she receives an unexpected phone call. The Ultra Program tough guy is currently active, according to a disguised and distorted voice. Mike is their objective, and he will be removed in less than 24 hours. Agent Lassiter objects to the operation, but is told not to intervene, claiming it's merely a courtesy call. She confronts Adrian Yates, another agent who has been avoiding her. She informs him that they are expected to defend their former assets, rather than kill them. Yates answers that Mike is a possible threat, and that his continued refusal to leave town is a security violation. They continue to bicker over it, and he finally snaps. He informs her that Mike will die today, and that she will be unable to save her failing endeavor. Mike and Phoebe are spending the night outside in West Virginia, smoking something and brainstorming ideas for his comic book. They're parked near one of their favorite hangouts, when they witness a tow truck removing a car that had recently slammed into a tree. Mike, who is quite high, starts talking about the car and the tree. He defines the car as an object that is continuously moving, and has the ability to travel anywhere it wants, whereas the tree is immovable, and has done nothing in its life until tonight, when it stopped the car. He begins to sob and wail, symbolically comparing himself to a tree and Phoebe to a car, meaning that he is holding her back in life. She tries to console him, telling him that's not the case, and the two later retire to bed. He lies to her in the morning, telling her he has to leave early for work. Instead, he meets up with his dealer friend Rose, to buy a package of fireworks illegally. Despite the fact that his vacation to Hawaii did not go as planned, he still intends to propose to Phoebe, and wants to put on an explosive display for her. Agent Lassiter arrives at the convenience shop, later in the evening, to inform Mike of his assassination. She walks up to the register, and starts speaking in code, notifying him that the Mandelbrot set has been activated, the Echo Choir has been infiltrated, and they are fielding the ball. Mike shows no signs of understanding the code she's reciting, which is supposed to trigger his latent skills. She apologizes to him, and departs after many failed attempts. Mike heads outside, where he finds two individuals tampering with his car. He tells them to get away, but they start walking towards him, knives in hand. After all, the activation code that Lassiter repeated to Mike was effective, and he swiftly springs into action. He splatters boiling soup in the face of the first henchman, and quickly disarms the other. He stabs one of the men in the neck with the soup spoon, before shooting them both dead with their own gun. He calls Phoebe while she is at work, terrified, and tells her about the incident. She arrives shortly after, and asks him why these men did this, but he has no idea. A little later, the local sheriff arrives and arrests them both. Adrian is informed two of their assets sent to neutralize Mike have been lost, and he realizes that Lassiter has activated him. He tells his soldiers to use whatever measures necessary to secure the town, and assigns two additional agents to execute Mike and Phoebe at the police station, who start talking about what happened. Mike tells Phoebe about the woman who approached him at work, and to their amazement, he recites the code flawlessly. Before more questions, the power goes out, and an alarm goes off throughout the facility. Agent Crane breaks in the station's front door, and begins unloading on the officers, while Agent Laffer sneaks through the back, to kill Mike personally. Mike's super instincts are improving, and he defeats Laffer in hand-to-hand fighting. Meanwhile, Agent Crane has dispatched all remaining officers, as she prepares to execute the sheriff, The power is restored, and she notices Mike and Phoebe attempting to flee on the surveillance cameras. They manage to flee the gunshots, but Crane orders Mike to stay, and throws a grenade at him. He grabs the grenade, but hurriedly tosses it away before it explodes. He walks over to Crane to finish her out, and he and Phoebe return to the store where he parked his car. She wants to leave town, but he says he can't. While the two are contemplating an escape route, the wind blows a bag onto his car, triggering a device that the henchman from earlier had put elsewhere. Agent Lassiter tries to flee town, but soon finds that it is under lockdown. She phones Yates after seeing guys in hazmat suits, and he informs they have made up a tale about a disease outbreak, to ensure that no one flees, including her. Lassiter arrives at the burning station, and discovers Agent Crane standing outside. She contacts her former assistant, PD, and demands that he airdrop a weapon and files on Yates' assets. He delivers pistols and files on Crane and Laffer, and she discovers from the files that Yates is employing patients from mad asylums, as part of his operation. The Yates team has established a base outside of the local store. Yates is taken to a vehicle full of sleeper agents, including Laffer, who escaped the explosion, and decides to employ them to go after Mike, who borrows Phoebe's car, and travels to Rose's house for refuge. Mike's memories continue to fragment as they travel, and he informs Phoebe that he suddenly understands everything there is to know about firearms, tanks and bombs. Rose is suspicious, because according to the news, Mike and Lassiter are the original source responsible for the disease spread, catching the highly dangerous sickness from monkeys, and that everyone should stay away from them. Rose traps them in the basement, and in the meantime a wave of sleeper agents sneaks around outside, leaking a toxic gas into the house's vents. Another agent breaks in, and murders Rose and two companions in the basement. Mike and Phoebe try to flee from the ceiling, but one of the agents bursts through the door. While Phoebe steals the gas mask, Mike promptly murders the agent with a kettlebell. The two dash outdoors, where Phoebe shoots the agent in charge of housing gas through the vents. She extracts an antidote from him, and administers it to Mike. He is asleep, but she reminds him the gas he inhaled is real flux, and if he falls asleep, he will die. Mike gradually loses consciousness and begins to see flashes of memories from his time with Phoebe. For a brief period, he is transported back to his last CIA interview, but the person on the other side of the desk is Phoebe. He awakens from his trance, but swiftly pulls Phoebe away. He inquires as to how she knew what gas was utilized. She discloses she works for the CIA, and was assigned as Mike's handler over 5 years ago. He feels deceived and flees to the car. She follows him and begs him to let her explain. The conversation becomes heated, and the car is abruptly knocked off the bridge by a jeep driven by Laffer. He rescues Phoebe from the upside-down car, and is told to bring her back to life. He tells Mike he's about to do something terrible, then pours gasoline all over the car, throws a lighter into the car, and attempts to wake Phoebe up. While everyone is distracted, Lassiter appears and assists Mike in getting out of the car before it explodes. When Laffer returns Phoebe to their camp, she is astounded to hear that Yates is in charge of the operation. He informs her that her pitiful lab rat partner was burned alive, and she is being arrested for insubordination. Meanwhile, Lassiter transports Mike to a secure location, and asks him if he recognizes her. He is perplexed and demands answers, so she begins calmly outlining his background. They first met when he was 18 and was arrested. She was recruiting for a program called Wiseman at the time. Their recruits were mostly third-strike misdemeanor offenders, and they offered them a second chance at life, working for the CIA as an experiment, and he was the only one who thrived out of all of the subjects. However, the experiment was driving him nuts, so they terminated and erased his memory. To safeguard him, they subjected him to a battery of psychological exams, instilling false fears in his mind, such as leaving town. A passerby notices the two outdoors, and reports it to the local authorities, who inform Yates, who instructs PD to launch a drone strike against Mike's home, where they have reached. PD nervously and reluctantly agrees. Back at the house, Lassiter keeps an eye on Mike as he gets high. She informs Mike that Phoebe had always believed in him, and her job was just to get him comfortable in town before returning to the CIA. A swarm of agents invade the residence moments later, a gunfire erupts, and Lassiter uses a teddy bear as a silencer to kill one of the agents. In grief, PD chooses to defy and cancel the airstrike. He calls Raymond Kruger, the CIA's operations chief. Mike is tied down in the kitchen at home, but he notices a frying pan fall in front of him. His instincts kick in, and he throws the pan into the air, ricochets a bullet off of it, and kills a soldier. Yates dials Lassiter's number, but Mike picks up. He tells Mike to meet him at the local store, but Mike insists on speaking with Phoebe first. She apologizes for everything, and argues that she is the tree and he is the car. She tells him he owes her nothing, but Yates cuts her off. Mike decides to go to the store in order to save his girlfriend. Using the fireworks he purchased from Rose, he enters the supermarket and drives through the glass doors. He goes on to kill all of the agents with whatever he can get his hands on within the store. Phoebe manages to steal a paperclip. Mike fires a firecracker to create a smokescreen, and plows through the remaining agents. He emerges from the smoke, and Yates orders Laffer to finish him, before fleeing with Phoebe. They enter another room. Phoebe uncuffs herself and strikes Yates with the paperclip. Lassiter then approaches from behind, and nearly strangles him with a cord. Kruger appears and demands her to stop, forcing them to accompany him. Mike snatches Laffer's pistol, and threatens him with it. Laffer apologizes to Mike, stating they have messed with his head. He claims Mike is a better agent than him, and Mike empathizes with the mentally ill man. Mike and Phoebe reunite and walk outside together, only to be met by a SWAT team and 6 armed troopers, with weapons aimed at them. Mike uses this occasion to propose to Phoebe. She responds yes, but the moment is cut short, when the officers tase both of them. Elsewhere, Kruger ties up Yates and Lassiter and leads them into the woods. He tells them their acts will have consequences, and they are responsible for the deaths of numerous men. Yates tries to explain himself, blaming everything on Lassiter, but Kruger reminds him he started this operation without permission, and shoots him twice in the chest. Kruger then informs Lassiter that he called her anonymously about Yates' plan, out of respect and courtesy, but he now regrets it. She persuades him that Mike is still a very valuable asset, who has managed to knock out 17 tough guys on his own. Back to the beginning of the movie's holding cell, the interrogator refers to Mike as Agent Howell. 6 months later, Mike and Phoebe are in the Philippines on a romantic vacation. Mike abandons Phoebe at the front desk, and she gazes into a secret camera, where Agent Lassiter and PD are watching. Mike enters an elevator, and is taken by 2 Mandarin thugs, as Lassiter had planned. The group's leader threatens and insults him, but he observes what he can get his hands on in the room, and takes action. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe us for more videos.